Hi everyone. So today we're gonna do some knife sharpening and reed gear. I realized after I did my last reed making live stream that I never actually introduced myself. So if you don't know, hi, I'm Michelle Feng. I'm the associate principal oboist with the Hawaii Symphony, and what else is there to know about me? Right now I'm in Vancouver, hiding from the virus. My family's in Vancouver and I just was there when this all happened. So it's a bummer that the symphony is not able to perform now, but we're just trying to keep busy doing stuff like this and putting up some videos and that sort of thing, and just hoping that we can get back to it sooner than later. I mean, safety first, right? So last time I talked you guys through my basic scraping process, which I thought was a good thing to start with for the first reedmaking episode, because I feel like it's what most students are most familiar with. And also people who aren't oboists. I think when they think of reedmaking, they probably think of scraping. But actually, before you can scrape, you gotta have a sharp knife, and if you want any sort of success with that, then you gotta have a sharp knife. So I thought that's what we would do today. So hopefully you can see there is my sharpening stone. Okay, so you're never gonna get anywhere without a sharp knife, because it's just gonna make you make mistakes when you're scraping. So I guess we should go over kind of the anatomy of a knife first. So what I'm using here, I've always used double hollow ground knives. There's a couple of different types, but double hollow ground, I've drawn, is it focusing? I've drawn a diagram to kind of show in more detail what it actually looks like. So, okay, anyway, if you're looking at the top of the knife, that's what this diagram is showing. So double hollow ground means there's the sides of the knife, and then when it's hollow ground, it refers to this part and this part, which actually kind of goes in. I think that's concave. I always forget which one's concave and convex. But anyway, so that's what makes it double hollow ground, is this sort of shape. And then when you're sharpening it, you're actually sharpening on this part at the top. There's like a pointy bit, theoretically, where the two sides kind of come in like this. So this is the part that's actually going to touch the metal when we're sharpening. So when you get a brand new knife, there's going to be less of this and more of this part. And then as time goes on, this is going to get more and more worn down. So this is going to kind of start to come down like that, if you can see. But I will show you how I sharpen my knives now. So this is a knife that I just sharpened earlier today, and the way you want to test your knives for sharpness is putting it on your nail, and just you're not pressing down, just kind of letting the weight of the knife go on your nail, and then I'm trying to push it forward. Oh, it could be a little sharper. I need to, yeah, you go like this. If it catches on your nail, yeah, it could be a little bit sharper, but it's not bad. Then that means it's sharp. You don't want a knife that when you put it down and it just sort of slides off like this one's doing. This one's pretty dull, so I'm gonna sharpen that one for you guys today. Let's see. This one's also kind of dull. Hi, Norm. Yeah, so, oh, before we sharpen, I should talk about one more thing. So the burr, oh, can you see that? Yeah. The burr is kind of the most important part, because that's what's actually going to take off cane when you scrape. So the burr refers to, you know how I drew this pointy tip? Actually, if you zoom in on a knife that's really sharp, it's not going to look like that. It's actually going to look like like this. Like it's gonna have a little kind of claw sort of sticking up over the top. If you're right-handed and you're looking at your knife this way, then I'm right-handed, so my burr is going to go in this direction because when I scrape, I'm going to be scraping in this direction. So it's kind of like a little scoop almost that when you scrape, it helps catch the cane and scoop it off. So the first thing we're going to do when we're sharpening is making this point, and then once we've got that nice like smooth point, then at the very end I'm going to show you how to put on the burr, and that's what makes your knife super sharp. Okay, so here's my double hollow ground knife, and the first thing, let me see if you can see. You see how like at the very left side of the knife there's kind of oh, it's not really focused. Yeah, there we go. There's kind of like a line. That's the part that I've sharpened on before. So that's basically this part here. And then the same thing on, see if it, yeah, you see that line on the right side? So that's this part here. So I use a Sharpie to draw over it because, well, you'll see why as we go. The Sharpie just makes it easier to see whether you've kind of ground off the whole side evenly. Okay, I guess I should explain what this is. So I'm using a diamond stone now. There's like a billion types of different stones and sharpening materials and rods and stuff. But what I found after experimenting a bit, most successful is a diamond stone. This is, I think I got it from Forest Music years ago. And it's the finest grit. I think they call it their super fine or something. It's like 1200 or whatever, something like that. If you feel it, actually feels pretty smooth, but you want the finest one you can get because oboe knives are like pretty delicate. I mean, it's not a kitchen knife that you're using for like a big hunk of meat, right? It's something you're using for a tiny little reed, so it has to be really delicate. Okay, so first I start with my knife flat on, and then I'm lifting it just a little bit until I feel this edge. So I'm making this part parallel with the stone, like that. And this is something you get just with some experience. If you're a student and you're first starting, it's kind of hard to find that edge, but after a while you'll be able to feel, okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I start with 7 strokes, and now remember how we put the Sharpie line on the side? So if I did that correctly, the Sharpie line should be gone all along the edge, and yeah, I don't see the Sharpie line anymore. And I can also start to feel that the left side has been sharpened and it's starting to catch a bit. When you have time to answer, do you ever use a rougher stone? No, I don't. I've always used the super fine stone. I don't know, I've never experimented with a rougher stone, but it's just what I was kind of brought up with my teachers to do. And I find that you can get, oh, I kind of lost count. I think I'm on 7 there. You can get a good sharp burr on a fine, super fine stone like this. Yeah, so I just did the same thing on the other side. I lifted it until I felt this edge. So that time I made this edge parallel with the stone, and then I did 7. And now I'm pushing the knife to the left to see if I start to feel the burr going the other way yet. And let's see if the Sharpie mark is gone. Yeah, looks like the Sharpie mark is gone along the whole side. That's good. That means that I was lifting it the right angle. Okay, so now it's pretty easy. I just keep lifting it on the same angle. And then I'm going to do 6 times. 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm starting to feel a little bit of an edge. If you don't feel an edge at this point, it's fine. Just flip it over and do the other side because we want to make them pretty even. 1, 2, 3, 4, oops, I slipped. 5, 6. Good, I'm feeling feeling the burr is now, because I just ground it on that side, the burr is tilting to this side. So when I push to the left, just with the weight of the knife, not pressing down, but it's kind of catching to the left. That's what I like to see. And if it's not catching yet after that step, then just go ahead and repeat the same thing. Do it 6 times on this side, 6 times on the other side. If it's not catching yet, it could be because you might have put on too much burr the last time, so the end is like too curved, and then if you imagine that the end of the knife is like really, obviously it's not actually going to look like that in real life, but if it's super curved at the end, you're going to have to like take off more to make it into a point. Does that make sense? So if you're not getting the catch at this point, it might be because you put on too much of a burr last time and you need to kind of grind this part off first. Or it might be that you're just not lifting the knife quite enough. So for example, if you were only lifting it at this angle, then you would be getting off this part, but you wouldn't actually be sharpening it all the way to the tip. So if you're not quite getting it yet, try a couple times more on each side, and if it's not catching yet, then you probably might want to lift your knife a little bit more. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I'm down to 5, and every time after I've got it catching, then the next time I reduce the number of strokes. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, it's catching a little bit. So now I'm going for 4, 2, 3, 4. We're just alternating back and forth to create the kind of this original point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Yeah. Now I'm on 3, right? 1, 2, 3. That's not catching as well as I want it to. I might not have lifted it quite high enough. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that side is good. I'm gonna do 3 again on this side. 2, 3. Because last time I did it, I don't think I lifted it quite high enough. Okay, good. Now it's catching. Now it's catching when I push to the right. 3 again here. 1, 2, 3. Just for symmetry. And now 2. Mm-hmm. 2. Yep, that's good. You want to be cautious when you're doing this that you're not lifting too far. If you're finding that when you do this test, you feel like a giant burr and it's like catching on your nail really hard, it might actually mean that you're lifting too high this way or that way. Because if you're lifting too high, then it's gonna look like this. Oh, there's a bump on my table. Well, anyway, it would look like that, and you would actually be taking off this whole point, which we don't want to do. We want to basically be taking it off parallel like this. So we're just sort of renewing the point because, oh, so many diagrams. If you imagine that, here's a sharp knife with a burr on, then as it gets like worn down from scraping, this part kind of goes away and you end up with a sort of a little bit rounded here. So that's why we want to go parallel to each side to make a new point here. Okay, now I kind of lost track of where I was, but all that to say, don't lift your knife too high and don't lift it too low. Lift it just the right amount. Okay, I think I'm on 1 stroke on each side now, right? 1. Okay, 1 on the side. I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna go for 1 more on each side just in case. I mean, it's like not a huge deal if you lift your knife too high, except that it makes your knife wear down a lot faster. Because like, if you're doing that, imagine this diagram. If you're always doing this, it's gonna bring your point down very quickly. Okay, good. So now every time I flip it with one stroke, I'm getting it catching on my fingernail. So now it's time to put on the burr. So remember, the burr is the part that actually makes it catch on the cane. And it kind of just means that we curve it over to one side a little bit extra. So I'm lifting it to the same amount, maybe like 1/2 a hair higher than I did it before. Go with the stroke. I'm feeling it catching a little bit more than it was before. I'm going to do one more. This part is a little bit, I think, personal preference depending on how much you like your knife to catch. This feels good for me. So now, yeah, actually if I run my knife, or run my hand, kind of my finger gently on the side of the knife, I can feel that there's just a tiny bit of a burr, an edge pointing over this way. And if I feel it on this side, it feels more smooth. But it's almost imperceptible. You don't want to have like a huge claw of a burr, because that's gonna just take off way too much cane. But I'd say I'm pretty happy with this one. And you can see like a fair amount of stuff comes off here. So it's good to have like a little rag or something to wipe your knife off. And I'm just going to show you one more knife that's a bit older because the angle is going to change. So where was that one? Oh, this needs to be sharpened. This one. No, wait, was it this one? Oh, that one's kind of dull. This one's dull too. Okay, this one is older, and you can tell the difference because, like, let me show you both of them. The older one is on the left, okay, and the one I just sharpened is this one on the right. You can see on the older one, on the left edge and on the right side here, there's been more metal ground off. And then same thing, it's a little bit less noticeable on the right side, but you can see it a little bit there. So what happens with the older knives, as you're continually sharpening and grinding it down, then it kind of makes this move down, right? So your point's going to start moving down, and then eventually your point might be like way down here or something. And so the blade just gets too short. Or if you imagine every time that you're lifting the knife at the very end to put on the burr, if you lift it a tiny bit higher every time, then eventually the angle is gonna start going from pointy, really pointy, to less pointy, and then eventually the angle starts getting so flat that you can't really get a good burr on it. So they do wear out. Sometimes you can have them reground to sort of restore them to this original state, but we're not really gonna worry about that too much right now. Yeah, I'll just show you guys with this old knife so that you can see that I have to actually raise the angle quite a bit more. Do the Sharpie thing. I think my Sharpie's drying out. Need a new one. Okay, so this one, I definitely have to, I feel like I have to raise it quite a bit more than the other one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see if we got rid of the Sharpie yet. There's a tiny bit of Sharpie on the very bottom, I think. It's pretty good. I'll do this side and then come back to that side once more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 4, 5, 6, 7. So after we do this, I'm going to kind of talk through some of my gear preferences. But if you guys have any questions, you can let me know and I'll be sure to address those. Okay, I'm feeling the edge. I don't know if you can tell in the video that I'm lifting it quite a bit higher, but I definitely feel that I am because this knife is a lot older. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. 5. Okay, so now we're on to 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. And as far as how to find the angle here, it's really something you get with practice. 2, 3, 4. But in general, the angle on this side is going to be a little bit higher than the angle on this side. The reason for that being that every time you put, well, this is if you're right-handed. If you're right-handed, every time you put the burr on, it's going to be going towards the right, so that means you have to lift it a little bit higher on the left side to get the burr on, and then eventually that's going to force you to have to lift it more and more. And then on this side, because, oh gosh, I lost track of how many strokes I was on again. Kind of hard to like explain and do it at the same time. 3, 4, I think. Yeah, on this side, you don't have to put the burr on going this way, so this side can be more or less stable in terms of the angle. 1, 2. It's really the left side that changes more. 1, 2, 3. Good. I'm feeling the edge quite easily now. Okay. Yeah, so I've experimented with like the ceramic crock sticks, I think they're called, and combinations of the diamond stone and the crock sticks and other stuff, the sharpening steels. I just find, I know some people don't like to use the diamond stone because it gets a lot of metal off. As you can see, it's like, it's totally coming off on my hand. But the truth is, with none of the other ones can I actually get it really sharp. And I'm like, yeah, I want to save my knives and not wear them out. Because when it comes off, then that's wearing the metal out, right? But there's no point in having a knife that lasts forever and is dull, right? So I think that's a bit better. I'm gonna go just do the last few strokes again. I wasn't quite happy with the burr I got. I do use the metal rods now as well, though, to hone the burr. Okay, that feels good now. That's a nice burr. So I'm just putting it on, like letting the weight of the knife drop and then pressing to the right, but it's not moving because it's caught on my nail. That's how you know that it's a good burr. All right, so that's pretty much a knife sharpening part. Oh, I lied. There's one more thing to the knife sharpening part. Well, oh yeah, look at that. So that's why people don't like to use the stone too much, because you really do lose a lot of metal every time. But I can't find, I just don't think that the ceramic sticks get it sharp enough. Okay, but anyway, so let's see. Here's a knife that I sharpened earlier today. And then I was scraping reeds a little bit, so it got a tiny bit dulled down. So yeah, you see it like slips a little bit in some places. It's not catching as hard as I normally would like it to. So I'm not going to take it back to the stone right away. I'm actually going to use this Gende sharpening steel. This is how the steel allows you to put the burr back on when it's kind of worn off, as it has with this knife. So after, like, say this is the knife that that you just sharpened. So it's got a nice burr there that's catching really well. And then after scraping a little bit, the burr starts to wear off and it's like maybe just a tiny bit of a burr now. Okay, so what this thing allows you to do is it just bends the tip. It bends it over to the right. It doesn't actually take off metal like we did with the diamond stone. It's not actually going to take it off. It's just going to reshape it like to make it lean to the right again. So the way I do that, oh, it's kind of hard to tell on this angle. I'll see if I can. I really like this thing because it's small and it folds up, so when I'm like working, I can take it with me easily. Obviously, I'm not working, no concerts right now, no rehearsals, just staying at home, so it pretty much sits around like this. But you open it like that, you put it on the table, and then you go like, move this out of the way. It's really easy to use. Just holding your knife straight up and down. 1, 2, and then usually I do 2 on that side. And it's kind of reshaped the burr, so yeah, it's kind of brought my burr back a little bit. So I just like that to kind of touch up the burr in between using the stone. I used to have the sharpening steel from Midwest Musical Imports, MMI, and it's more of like, it's like a thicker kind of tube of metal. It's like this thick, and then it's got like this wooden handle. It's bigger than this. It's like the metal part is maybe like this long, and then it's got a handle that's similar length, but you do the same. If you have that one, it works fine as well. You just hold it vertically, and then since like this one, when you hold it, it's already got this slant built in, but then with the one, I don't have it with me, with the other one, you would hold that vertically, and then you would turn your knife sideways instead when you do it. The reason why I don't have it is because it got taken away from me at security, and I was so pissed because that thing is like, it's not sharp. It's like this wide. It's not pointy. But then I think the guy was just in a bad mood or whatever. So I lost that one, and that's why I ended up getting this thing, which I like, but it was pretty annoying. Okay, that's it for the knife sharpening part. That's basically all I do. And then like, when I start not being able to get it sharp with this anymore, then I know it's time to go back to the stone and repeat that process. So unless there's any questions on that, I guess I'll just show you guys a little bit my gear setup and some of my favorite stuff to use. Yeah, it was pretty annoying when those guys took my sharpening steel. And then it was one time when I was in Hawaii. I was traveling from Vancouver to Hawaii, and I had actually left my knives in Hawaii because I didn't want to have to check a bag. So I just left my knives there, and I thought everything else is fine because it's not sharp. Then they took that thing. I arrived in Hawaii, so I didn't have my sharpening steel, and I had to borrow something from one of my colleagues for a little bit before the Gende one arrived. Stone cleaning. Yeah, I just wash it in the sink with soap and water. I mean, it's pretty easy. I've heard some people say you can use an old toothbrush and kind of scrub it, but I think the metal dust comes off pretty easily. Okay, so let's talk about, well, we may as well talk about knives as far as gear, since we just sharpened a knife, right? So let me just put this down. The knives that I was just showing you guys, these, I think they're called Sharugi. But anyways, as I said before, I've always used double hollow ground knives. I've tried quite a few of them, and these so far are the ones I like best. They last pretty long, and I don't know, they're easy because they fold up. So if you're if you're a working musician, or you're going to school, you're going to youth orchestra, or you're going to work, whatever, you just fold it up, and it's easy to take with you in a little pouch. I feel like they're good quality, and they seem to last. longer than the other ones do. And I can sharpen them. They get sharp for me. A lot of other knives, they just don't really get sharp. I'm trying to find... I'll show you guys some of the other knives I've tried. Oops, you see my laundry hanging in the back there? Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so I tried the Nielson knives, which look like this. And I only tried it this once, but for some reason, I just it wasn't... Oh, it's super dull. It's completely dull right now because I haven't used it for scraping in a while, but I just couldn't get it sharp. I don't know why. Maybe it's something about the way I sharpen my knives. Maybe it's just not the right method for this knife, but that's why for me it didn't quite work out. Or I think when I got them sharp, I felt like I couldn't keep a burr on them for a long time. It works for some people, so just not for me. I now use this just to when I'm about to what's that called? When I'm about to shape a piece of cane, I scrape off the center of it so that it folds better, and I use this thing because I don't want to take off a lot. And then there's this is super old and rusty. I think this was my first knife ever. These ones work perfectly fine. It's what I have my students use, and you get them at Forest. They're also double hollow ground. And now this one's so old, it's gotten to that stage where you can't sharpen it anymore because I was drawing that diagram, you can't sharpen it anymore because it's not even pointy anymore. But I use it for folding cane before I shape. How long have you used your stone? Do you replace after a certain time? No, I don't think you're supposed to. Well, I don't know. I never have. So I really hope that you're not supposed to. It's a diamond stone. So I think that means I'm the worst person to talk about gear because I'm not really a real gearhead. I don't know that much about how stuff works, but I'm pretty sure it means the surface is coated with a diamond coating. So it shouldn't get worn, I don't think. Anyway, I never replaced that all the years I've been using it. Yeah, Ron says he uses his Nielson knife as a bark knife also. So, I don't know. Ron and I known each other for so many years since when we were in Vancouver. So maybe we're just on the same oboe wavelength. Oh yeah, and Landwell knives. I was just thinking of what other knives have I tried. The Landwells, I also could not get sharp, and they are so expensive. So they work for some people. I know some people who swear by it, but it's just, for me, it's too much money to drop on something that I can't even get sharp. So I think I tried it once, and then I kind of gave up on it. Sorry, Landwell. It works really well for some people, just not for me. Okay, oh, on the subject of knife sharpening, if you're a student, I highly, highly recommend having 2 or more knives to cycle through, because right after you take it off the stone, like what we just did, then it's going to be really, really sharp, and the burr is going to be pretty pronounced. So if you take that knife and start trying to finish your tip, then it's almost guaranteed you're going to take off a corner or something, do something that you didn't mean to, because the knife is just sharper than you were expecting. So usually I've got these 4 knives in rotation right now, and that's kind of my setup that I've been using lately. So the knife that I just took off the stone, that's super duper sharp, I'm not going to use it to try and finish anything. I'm probably going to use it to scrape the back a little bit or scrape the heart a little bit, but I'm not going to use it on the tip until it feels a tiny bit broken in, and then probably I would put it on this thing, and then I would use it to finish the tip. Oh, when I was showing you guys this, I totally should have had the camera on this angle. It's way better. Well, this is how you use it. Now you can actually see the angle properly. Yeah, but if you're a student and you only have 1 knife, I know they're kind of expensive, and if you're a student, yeah, I get it if you can't have more than 1 knife, then just, after you sharpen your knife, just don't use it directly on the tip or any kind of really fine detail work, use it to like scrape the bark off a blank, or like do the preliminary scrape for a blank or something first. Don't go straight to the tip because you're setting yourself up for trouble there. Okay, let's see. I guess I can show you guys kind of, I'll just go through my whole process and quickly show you all the tools and stuff since we're supposed to talk about gear. A lot of these things, if you're a student, you might not use them yet because I know students, you normally start off getting the gouge-shaped folded cane, so you might not have need for a lot of these things, but I'll show you anyway in case it's interesting, and then in the future when you get there, then hopefully it'll give you a better sense of what sort of things you need to get. So if you're using tube cane, then you want to have something to measure it with, because one of my big things for reed making is consistency. There's no way you can get better at reeds if you're not consistent with everything, every single thing you're using in your reeds. Like, you got to use the same type of staples. You got to use the same diameter of cane and all. Like, I'm not really a big gear person because I don't like changing them all because it just throws off my setup. And then, like, if you change one thing, you have to change the way you're scraping, and you have to change a lot of other variables to make it work. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with experimenting with different stuff, but like, if you're gonna experiment, then do it one variable at a time, because otherwise you won't know. If you're changing your cane diameter and your shape at the same time, you won't know which is the one that caused the difference. You know what I mean? So anyway, all that to say, if you're using tube cane, make sure you're measuring it well. And use one of these things that has like the semicircular indentations. So as you see, this one's from Harvard Double Reed. That's John Ferrillo's company. And like when you put it in, the reason I like this is because you can really see the shape of the cane when you're looking at it. You know how some pieces of cane, it's not perfectly round. It looks like, I don't know, it looks more like that or something. It's not perfectly round. So you'll be able to see that with this one. There's also those, like, I think it's called, I actually don't know what this thing is called. Is it radius gauge? I think. There's those other ones that are called, I think it's called a rake, and like the indentations are square. It looks like a castle wall. It looks like that. So then you would just like put this thing into the hole. But that's not good because it's not actually showing you if the cane is round or not. Anyway, and then so when I'm choosing my cane, I look at it like this as well, to make sure that it's flat and that it's not curving up or going this way. It should be as flat as possible. And then sometimes I'll take the ones that go if you're looking at it like this, the ones that go like this a little tiny bit, because that's going to make the sides seal better. But I will never take the ones that go like that. If you are looking at your tube cane like this and the middle of it is coming up like a frowny face, don't use it, because it's going to make you frown when you try and play that reed, okay? It's going to make you sad. Anyway, so I found this piece of cane that there's a straight bit and it fits in 10.75, which is what I'm using lately. So it fits well in 10.75, so that's the piece of cane that I'm going to use, and I'll split it. If you're like kind of just starting reed making, probably not going to have to worry about all this for a while, but just when you get to that point, be really careful about your cane selection. Don't just like randomly split your cane, because it's going to save you so much time in the long run if you just choose your cane carefully. So yeah, this one is pretty well flat. I think I'm going to chop off this end because it goes up a tiny bit. Okay, so a lot of the cane that you get in stores, it's like, oh my god, the ones that they process for you, because nothing against the stores, right? Because everyone, it's just the way they do stuff, and when you have to sell cane in such a high quantity, then obviously you might not have time to go through every single piece, right? But like when I get a shipment of tube cane and I'm looking at it and I'm like turning it to see if it's flat or not, sometimes there are pieces that are really, really frowny or they're really smiley, like they go up quite a bit. So do examine your cane and pay attention to whether it's straight and what the diameter is. It's all about consistency. Okay, this is my guillotine. It's a chopper for chopping off when your cane piece is longer than it needs to be. That's pretty simple. It's just a chopper. On the topic of choosing cane, there's like, I don't know what it's called. I guess it's called a cane splitter. It's one that it automatically splits a tube of cane into 3 pieces. So it kind of like has 3 blades like that, and then you take the tube of cane, you just press it down, chops into 3 pieces. My teacher in college, Alan Vogel, he would just use that thing, and it would just come out 3 pieces, and he would just use all 3 pieces without measuring them or anything, which I cannot say a word against him because I love him so much and he's amazing, and he's like he's just an incredible artist. And he had chops of steel, or he had I don't know if he's playing a lot. I don't think he's playing a lot anymore, but he's got chops of steel, so he can make any reed work. But if you don't have chops of steel, like me, or most people, then you probably want a reed that's a little bit easier to play. So don't use that cane splitter with the 3 prongs, because it's just it means that you can't choose which piece of cane you're using, and you're not gonna know if it's actually flat or curved or what. And you want to be able to control every aspect of the reed making process. So the next step, this is my pre-gouger. It's got an English horn side and an oboe side, but I never gouge my English horn cane. I always buy it gouged, so I've never actually used this part. And it's just like, you lay the cane in this groove, and then there's this thing which has a blade here. You can just go over like this. This is my planer. And it's called that because it makes it flat on the top. And this is probably my favorite part of reed making because it's super easy. All you do is this. And there's nothing to pay attention to. It's actually really satisfying. Like if you're grumpy because your reeds haven't been cooperative, and then just like slicing away on it, pretty satisfying. Oboe players sometimes I feel like I have a pretty sad life. Just making reeds all day long. Take the little things where they come, right? Okay, and then the next thing, I'll show you my gouger because I feel like the gouger is a pretty important part. Like, as far as what really affects reeds, I would say the number one thing is your cane, the quality of cane, and sometimes you can't control that because it's just what you get at the store, or you know, like it might just have been a bad season and the cane harvest wasn't good that year. But you can control measuring your cane, choosing the pieces that are flat and the right diameter, that sort of thing. And then the next most important thing is probably going to be your gouge. Now, I'm not really one to talk about it because I am pretty terrified of gougers and haven't tried very many of them. I've always used this one called Inolity. Let me try and... This is my gouger. It's an Inolity machine, and it works different than a lot of other gougers. Some of the other gougers work more similar to like this thing, where there's a bed that you lay... Oh, sorry. Some of them, there's a bed where you lay the cane, and then there's a blade that you go like this, and that's what gouges it. The Inolity is a bit different because, if you have a closer look at it, it's got this, it's kind of hard to show. It's got a blade, maybe it's easier to show from this side. Let's see. So, is it focusing? The blade is actually this. You see there's like a small little smiley face there? This part is the blade. And so you're gonna, it works by laying the cane in, I need two hands. One sec. I lay the cane in the bed down here. See, I lay the cane in here, and then this roller, these two rollers hold it in place and they roll it forward. And then it's going to get pushed through that blade that we saw, the smiley face thing that was on this other side. It's going to get pushed through here. And that's the part that takes off the cane. Now the height of this blade is adjustable, but the other parts of this machine aren't really that adjustable. So for the Anolity, I think one of the downsides is it's not very adjustable, and some of the other machines you can adjust them more, but that's also a pro because there's fewer things to go wrong, right? You basically, I don't know, I've never had this machine serviced, so maybe it's secretly broken and I don't know and I'm just using bad cane, who knows, but whatever, the cane seems to work for me, so, and I don't like all that fuss and having to send it in and get it serviced and all that stuff, so that's why it works for me. I just keep using it. So if you noticed, I was adjusting the height of the blade. There's a micrometer here. So right now it's at 120. This thing is not super accurate, but for the first couple passes, it's fine. Okay, so there I did 120, and then I put it back in there, and I'll do it at 90. There we go. It's getting thinner, and I don't know if it's possible to even tell. Yeah, kind of see the shape of it. And then I'll do it once at 70. My head's probably going to block the camera. 70, there we go. The Anole is what's called a single radius gouge. And double radius gouges, well, I haven't really experimented with them, so I can't really say, but they're supposed to give you a bit of a better hold up in the high notes. But I honestly, one day I'll probably experiment with other gougers, but honestly, they're really expensive. And I don't want to go out and buy like a ton of different gougers and like throw down a couple grand on each one, and then what if I don't like them? So I'm not there yet. Okay, like I said before, this thing isn't actually that accurate. So I have this other micrometer I got from Harvard Double Reeds, and I've been told that Chudnow also makes a really good micrometer. So I'm gonna use this to measure. Yeah, like this thing is showing me 77. Hello, camera. It's showing me 77, and this one down here is showing 70. So you always want to check it with that. And then I prefer, because with the Anole machine, the other thing that is unique about it is it gouges dry cane. Most other machines, you have to soak your cane first before you gouge it. But because I'm gouging dry, I am actually, it was on 77, right? Yeah. I'm gouging a bit thinner than some people might do with the other machines. Most people, like the kind of accepted norm is gouge between 58 and 62, and I go for 58 on this machine. So, okay, I miss this. Do you prefer flatter or more curved cane? I'm not really sure what you mean. Do you mean like the diameter of this, or do you mean like the flatness of this plane? Because this plane is definitely best if this is flat. If it's curving a little bit this way, like a smiley face, just a tiny bit, I'm okay with that. If it's curving the other way, like a frowny face, I'm not okay with that. I will never use a piece of cane that looks like that. And then in terms of this, the diameter, flatness of planes. Okay, this one. Yeah, so definitely flat is the best. But if it's going a tiny bit up, like a smiley face, then that's okay because it's gonna make your side seal better, and be better for your high notes actually. And then in terms of diameter of cane, lately I've been using 10.75. So there we go, 58. I'm happy with that. And then on the topic of consistency, I always keep track of how thick they're gouged to, because sometimes you get a fluke and it might be a little bit thinner or a little bit thicker than 58. So I'm going to write down, where's my pencil? 58. And I write down the type of cane as well. This one was French cane, and the batch, November 2019. The diameter, 10.75. And I gouged it, today is, what day is today? The 8th, I think. So that's part of my way of keeping track of consistency, and is to know all of those details. Okie dokie, so what else did I want to share with you guys in terms of gear? Oh, staples. Yeah, that's a good one. My favorite staples for oboe are the glow tan silver staples. 47 millimeters. And I've been using these for a long time. I just really like them. I use the glow tan mandrel as well, that the Ferrillo one, and seems to fit well. So that's what I use for oboe. I've always used 47 millimeters. Sometimes I wonder if I should experiment with 46 because my reeds tend to finish on the longer side, and they sometimes tend to be, let's just say I have more trouble with getting a reed up to pitch than with them being sharp. They usually tend to be on the lower side, so I wonder, maybe one day I'll try 46 millimeter staples. The day is not now. And then for English horn, I like these Chudnow staples, which I mentioned. Somebody asked me about it last time we had the live stream. So it's different from the normal one, or from most English horn staples, because it's got like a little ring at the bottom that holds it in place. God, I can't believe I've been talking for so long just about gear. I'm such a nerd. So there's like the normal ones, and then there's this one's the Chudnow one. So like this one you see is kind of just like a cone shape. The cool thing about the Chudnow is that it's got this bit screws off, and inside there is a little silicone ring. So when you put it on your bocal, the ring catches the metal and it holds it in place, so it will never slip. And if you play much English horn, you may have had bad experience with your reed slipping off your bocal, like when you're taking a breath or something. It's not a comfortable experience. So with this Chudnow one, it makes sure that's never gonna happen. Oh, I better put that back as well. I don't want to lose it. And what else do I have? I don't have very much more for you guys. Like I said, I'm not a big gear person. Oh, I guess I'll tell you about my setup, what I play on. That's kind of important. I play Loré, oboe, and English horn, both of them. And the English horn, I guess I told you about staples already. Usually I play on a Hinnerker bocal. I have a couple of them. I don't know if you can see, but I like the Hinnerker bocals. They have a nice, like, really full sound. But this one is a bit, sometimes I find my reeds are a bit flat on it. So I've got a couple of other ones. I have an old Chudnow, and I also have a Cymer. And let's see, like you can see there's a bit of a length difference, so it's handy to have a couple in case your reed like maybe has a really great sound but it's just a little flat. Never used Lorraine. I don't know. Have I ever used them? I don't know if I've ever used Lorraine staples. I know that I've tried the Pisoni and I didn't like them because the walls were too thick and I couldn't get the cane to close around them. So that's why I stopped using the Pisoni. And I used to use the Stevens Silver number 2 before he passed. But actually they make copies of the Stevens now. I think you get it at Midwest Musical Imports. And I actually bought some a while ago, but I haven't tried them, so I can't really comment. Oh, that reminds me, one more thing. My shape, I use for the oboe. Oh, you know how I keep saying I'm not a big gear person, but actually I have experimented with my shape kind of a fair bit lately in the past year or so. And so when I was a student in high school, I always used Gilbert -1 because that's what my teacher used, and like it worked fine for me I used that all through college. I went to college in LA and it's really dry there, so I think that shape, it worked well. When I was in LA, I always had problems with my reeds being too sharp and not open enough, so that just, it really depends on your climate a lot, what your reeds are doing. Anyway, so I was using Gilbert -1. But then when I moved to Hawaii, it was too flat for me and the reeds were too open because Hawaii's a lot more humid. So then Chip Heyman, who plays principal over in Ottawa, the Canadian National Arts Centre Orchestra, he gave me, super, super nice of him to just give me one of his old shaper tips because they can be a couple $100 each. He gave me his old Mac Plus, and so I was using that, and with this one I shape it at the top. So when I put the cane on it, I don't push it all the way down here. I place it so that it's level with like this, because it's a pretty narrow shape. So like Chip just told me that's what he does with his shape, and I tried pushing it down, but it didn't really work. So yeah, that's what I do with this one. I was using this one for a while, and then like maybe about a year ago, less than a year, no, it was last fall, I started getting down a rabbit hole with shapers because I wasn't happy with the opening on my reeds or something. Why was it? I think they were too flat. So then I tried the Gilbert -1N, which is like, now I have a -1N, I have the -1N. -1N is quite narrow, and it worked for me for a little bit, but then my reeds started getting the opposite problem, like they wouldn't vibrate enough. So after that, eventually I went back to my Mac Plus, and I don't know. Like I keep saying, I'm not a big gearhead because I'd rather just find a setup that works and stick with it, and you're always going to get variation, like in your cane. Like you cannot control the cane, so the cane is a huge variable, so I would rather just like stick with it. And do what just continue kind of with the same setup. But anyway, hopefully that wasn't too boring for you guys, but we're out of time, and next time I'll do tying, okay? So stay safe and healthy, and see you next time.